Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Meg. As you can probably tell by the screen right now, this video is going to be a bit different than some of my other videos because I figured the easiest way to go about this video in a way that it'll make sense is by using a visual representation, which is why you see this picture of me on the screen. Hi. And for this video, I'm going to be talking about my dream horror movie concept. Why am I going to be talking about my dream horror movie concept, you might ask? Good question. A while back, around Halloween time, I was seeing videos of like, oh, what type of characters would my friends and I be if we were characters in this type of movie on TikTok. And my favorite genre of movie is horror comedy. So I was like, oh, what if I post, like, what type of characters would my friends and I be if we were characters in a horror comedy? Specifically, a Gen Z horror comedy movie. And from there, I couldn't let it stop there. I had to go on to figure out all the characters, develop a plot, and basically plan out the whole entire movie. And I didn't want that to go to waste, so I'm going to make a video right now talking about the whole plot and everything. So this is my friend and I as characters in a Gen Z horror comedy. Before this video starts, I just wanted to give a disclaimer. This is about me and my friends, and in this hypothetical scenario, we are playing the main characters of this movie. It is a horror comedy, so people are gonna die. And I just want to give a disclaimer, I don't wish death upon any of my friends or myself. This is talking strictly about characters. Obviously, I just wanted to put that out there. So I decided that this movie would be called Killers with a Z. The title is very negotiable. I just wasted all my creativity, thinking of the rest of it. It's also badly photoshopped because I did it really quick, but right now I thought of Killer Z because it's Gen Z. This is a rough estimate of what all the characters would look like. The plot of this movie would center around 7 main characters who I'll introduce you to in a second who work at the same mall, and they each have a negative experience involving Karens. And because of that, once the mall closes for the day and they're all closing down their respective stores, the Karens decide to break in and seek revenge on the employees who ruined their shopping experience. So obviously the employees fight back and it becomes a whole thing. So let's meet the characters, shall we? First and foremost, we have my character, Miss Presley. She's kind of stupid. She's like the stereotypical dumb character. No one really takes her too seriously, but she has a super fun personality. Like, she's super bubbly and happy, but she's also just kind of dumb. And she works at a craft store, a newly opened craft store, with coworker Zachary, who would be played by my friend Austin. I didn't mean to lay them on top of me like that. That sounded wrong, Austin, if you're watching this. I'm so sorry. Zachary is very similar to Presley, but he's a little bit smarter, but they're both really like bubbly and happy, and they don't really take life too seriously. Zachary is really funny. In this movie, he would deliver a lot of really, really funny lines, and he's definitely the character that's mostly for comedic effect. And then we have our more angsty characters who would work in a store that has the same type of vibe as like a Spencer's. We have Theo, who would be portrayed by my friend Lucas, and he is the epitome of angst. And obviously it's super dramatized for the sake of the movie, but he would just be really bitter and angry to be working at the store. He takes no shit from any of the Karens, and he's overall just the opposite of a ray of sunshine, the opposite of Presley and Zachary. He's sort of the type of character you would kind of hate towards the beginning of the movie because you're like, he's in such a bad mood for why. But, he is also a really, really badass character who's obviously not afraid of fighting, which is super cool. And then we meet his manager, Sam, who would be played by my friend Aaliyah. And Sam would be more laid back than Theo would be, but they're both kinda angsty. They don't really take shit from customers, but Sam has a more calm approach. Like, if a Karen comes into their store and is angry and wants to speak to the manager, they try and be respectful about it, whereas Theo just straight up isn't afraid to start cussing them out. Then we have my friend Josephine's character, Nichole. I'm super excited about this character. They would work in some type of like clothing or beauty store, and Nichole is sort of the stereotypical snobby character. She cares very much about fashion and the way things look, and she's not necessarily like a mean character, like she's not mean to anybody, but she is kind of like, she's a little self-centered, like she thinks she's beautiful, she always wants to look good, a little bit of like Trina Vega vibes, I guess. She thinks she's like on top of this world on a pyramid, and that's sort of Nichole's type of personality, which is definitely not Josephine's personality whatsoever, but it's really funny. Then we have Caitlyn's character, Miss Lydia. Lydia is kind of just there. This is a little bit of a stretch. Lydia works in like a hunting, camping, archery store, something with that type of vibe. I needed that type of store for the plot to exist, I'm sorry. So, a store that sells weapons. And she's just really sweet. She's a little too sweet at times. She's sort of the type of character no one would take her as a badass. Towards the beginning of the movie, she's way too lenient with her customers, and she's just a really peaceful person, always wants to resolve conflict. And then we have Charlie, who would be played by my friend Bailee. Charlie works at a fast food restaurant, and she's all about the rules. She is very, 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 very strict about policy, and she really dedicates herself to her job and will not do anything that's against the rules. So like if a person has a messed up order but they don't have a receipt or proof, she won't give it to them. And she just like won't do anything out of place at all. She's very strict in her rules, and she's very strict about everything being clean and just strict about everything. And she's also the most logical one. Like she tries to have a plan and figure everything out strategically, whereas everyone else is just kind of chaos. Now we've seen the 7 main characters, but who are they going to be fighting? Well, none other than 8 Karens. Technically 7 Karens and 1 Karen in training, who's the daughter of one of the Karens, so she's not as Karen-y as the Karens, but like she's still a Karen, you know what I mean? They're all like in their 40s or 50s. She's a little bit younger, but she still has attitude problems and obviously needs to go. Naturally, all of the characters' names are not literally Karen. They would all have their own individual names, but for the sake of this and getting to the point of the plot, I'm not going to list all of their names and everything. Obviously, there would be other stores in the mall besides the ones that the 7 main characters work at, but the Karens are obviously only targeting the employees who gave them a bad experience. And any of the other, like, stores or workers you'd see wouldn't have names or really be main characters. They just got in the way of the Karens. So one of the Karens would be upset with Presley and Zachary because one of their items wasn't cheap enough. One of the Karens with her daughter is upset with Theo first, and then Sam, because they obviously just don't like the type of the store Karen thinks it's inappropriate for her daughter to be going into, even though her daughter is not a teenager anymore. Her daughter is definitely a young adult. I think she knows what a penis is, Karen, but her mom doesn't want her daughter in that type of store, and she thinks it's offensive that it's at the mall. Then we have a couple Karens who get upset with Nichole. One of them, they just can't find a beauty product, or they insist they have something that they don't, and another was caught trying to shoplift. Obviously they were caught. Nichole tried to confront them and they got mad. I don't even know what they would have done at Lydia's store. Maybe a Karen just wanted like a refund that they didn't have, or I don't know specifically. I didn't get that far. And then a couple people would be eating at Charlie's little fast food restaurant and just breaking rules, which obviously, upsets Charlie. And obviously this would take place in a world where there's no pandemic, so none of them are wearing masks. We can imagine. So let's change the background real quick and dive into this. So, they're all in their respective stores, and they're closing down, and all of these guys are friends. all of the main characters, they work in the same mall, they're around the same age. So they're friends. And when they're closing down, they hear a strange noise throughout the mall. So they kind of look out and they're like, oh shit, the Karens are in our store. And they quickly are texting in this group chat and they realize that these are all customers they interacted with earlier in the day who gave them a hard time. And they're obviously here seeking revenge. They brought bats and guns and they brought weapons with them. So obviously they ain't here to play no games. They're pissed off. And so the main characters think their best bet would be to make it down to Lydia's store because she works at a store that carries weapons. So their best bet is to try and get there so they can get weapons, use them if need be, and get the fuck out of the store where they're safe from the Karens. Obviously they're just trying to close down and make money to pay for all the bills they need to pay. They don't want to deal with this bullshit. So they're all spread out throughout their stores, and they are planning the time where they're all just going to make a run for it and get to Miss Lydia's store. But my sweet character, poor dumb Presley, she decides she doesn't need to go get a weapon because she says she already has one. And what is Presley's weapon? Well, the store they work at recently opened, so she thinks she's going to use the giant, tape cutting scissors they had from the store being opened, and she thinks that'll protect her against the Karens. Obviously, everyone in the group is like, Presley, that's not gonna work. But they all make a break for it and leave their store, and one of the Karens does try and come for Presley, and Presley does actually successfully kill them with her giant scissors, which is great. She gets the first kill of the movie, and one Karen already down, which is nice. The others do start making it to the store. Theo's character really goes through it. He gets really attacked by the Karens, but he doesn't die. That's important to note. He successfully makes it. They all successfully make it, except Presley. While she was trying to get where she needs to be, she was actually pushed over the railing by one of the Karens, and that's the end of Presley. The other characters successfully make it to Lydia's store, where they stock up on weapons. Charlie opts for a bow and arrow. Sam opts for a machete. Theo opts for a gun. He's already kind of wounded. He figures a gun is his best bet. He doesn't need to be too close to get kills. Nichole opts for brass knuckles because she thinks they're the most stylish and inconspicuous. And Lydia goes for a bat, but later on you'll see Lydia actually has super cool mind powers. She pulls a Carrie White, and Zachary chooses an axe, but his stupid sweet soul decides that his axe is too boring and he can't kill anybody with anything so dull and lifeless. So he sneaks back to the craft store and customizes his axe. And my friend Austin, who would play Zachary, actually made the axe in real life back for Halloween and became the character, which is super cool. I love that they did that. So they would paint their axe all rainbow and shit, which obviously the Karens make fun of him for. They're like, why the fuck you got a rainbow axe, honey boo boo? So obviously there would be a huge fighting montage in the mall where they're all just, trying to live their lives and get the fuck out of there. Eventually Lydia did take off one of the Karens with her mind powers, and that obviously makes everyone be like, oh shit, Lydia's super powerful, we need to work to protect Lydia because she's probably the best at protecting us because of her mind powers. But obviously Lydia's super sweet. She doesn't want to use them. She doesn't want to harm people, so she's kind of shy to use them, but she'll use them if one of her friends is being attacked. The next to die is Mr. Theo, but not from a wound that you'd expect. He gets pushed down an escalator or something, and the fall is what kills him. While we're in there, Miss Sam gets a beautiful graphic kill with her machete. They do successfully make it out of the mall and into the mall parking lot where more fights take place. One of the Karens targets Zachary, and Lydia sees this unfold, so she moves Zachary out of the way with her mind powers, eliminates the Karen who was going after Zachary. First, of course, Zachary got a great kill with the axe. The Karen was sort of confronting him. They're like, you're not going to be able to kill me with that. It looks like if Jojo Siwa had an axe. And they're making fun of him for that. And he does, in fact, kill them with the axe, cuts their head open, and says sometimes you gotta keep an open mind. Unfortunately, then a bunch of shopping carts are pushed towards him, and he gets trampled by the shopping carts, and thus ends the life of Zachary. And distracted from all of that, Lydia was finally eliminated. I say finally, I'm not like happy she was eliminated, but like she lasted a hot minute because she was really powerful. So they decide to go on the road. I just realized that says taxi. We're just going to pretend that it does not. So they're going on a nice little car chase. The Karens are in a Subaru because revenge, that's what makes a Subaru a Subaru. And they're driving like crazy all over the road, and eventually the Karens do hit the characters, sends them flying in a car accident that ends up being fatal for Sam. Rest in peace, Sam. Love you lots. And because of the accident, obviously their car was like veered off road. The Karens are satisfied because they veered their car off road, so they're like, yay, and they keep on driving past. But there were 2 survivors from the crash, Nichole and Charlie. And they realized that Charlie's mom's house isn't too far away, so they decide to just walk the rest of the way to Charlie's mom's house, where they are greeted and welcomed in by Charlie's mom. A special role I reserved for Miss Sarah Paulson. Would Sarah Paulson realistically want any part of this movie? No. But what's life without a couple dreams? So obviously they like start to tell her what happened that night, and they're like, holy shit, these Karens were after us. And her mom's like, oh shit, that's terrible. Well, you guys can stay here and hang out. And unfortunately, they can't hang out because that's when the Karens come charging in. They're like, hey, we ain't done with you yet. And they're obviously terrified, but Nichole takes out the younger one. And, you know, they get into a nice fight. Charlie's mom kind of just stays out of the way. She's like, yeah, no. And eventually in the fight, they end up going outside, where they fight some more. And unfortunately, poor Charlie meets her match when she's pushed into the in-ground swimming pool, and it's one that has one of those covers, so she dies. She was pushed in there by one of the Karens, which as a mother, she doesn't want to see her daughter be killed. So she kills the Karen who killed her daughter. And then Nichole thinks it's like an even playing field, and she relatively easily eliminates the last Karen, and she revels in her defeat. She is victorious. She has succeeded. Oh, but she hasn't, because then Miss Sarah Paulson, I don't know what her character's name is yet, stabs her in the back, both literally and metaphorically, I suppose, and she reveals that she is friends with the Karens. They're her friends. She obviously didn't want her own daughter to die, which is why she killed the Karen who killed Charlie, but she had no problems with any of the rest of them dying. She invited the Karens there. That's how they knew the girls were there, and she's a secret Karen. So obviously Nichole dies from being hit by the secret Karen, and the last scene we see of Nichole is just, after being stabbed, she goes, fuck. She dies, and all we see is Sarah Paulson, the last remaining Karen. I know that was a bit confusing and complicated. Obviously, there's more to it than that. There'd be specific fight scenes. The Karens would have actual names. But that's just a premise of what the plot would be. But that is all for this video. If you guys like, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. As always, feel free to comment or subscribe. I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.